break here with my panel, talking about Pia Galgalo, former woman representative in Isiolo County. Professor Jacqueline Odwol, nominated MP, Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu, and Dr. Agnes Zani, nominated Senator and also Secretary General of ODM. We want to wrap up this discussion this morning, and of course now we have a new tagline: are we doing things right, or are we doing the right thing? And that's the main argument. But Professor Odwol asked a question, and you're asking if we're doing it right for who? Dr. Zani, let's start with you. You insist you're doing it right. Yeah. For who? Are we saying that the right thing is different for different people depending on their political affiliation?
Fred, because you're in the mood for semantics, let me start by telling you that you cannot do it right if it is the wrong thing. No matter how hard you try, you cannot do it right if it is the wrong thing that you're doing. And if you're doing it right, the question you're asking is for whom? And Professor quoted a very important article, and we're asking ourselves, what is the final outcome for the Kenyan? Our final outcome for that Kenya is that we want to have a free, credible, and fair election. There are people from all corners of this country that are saying to us, no matter what you do, ensure that our vote counts. Ensure that we have. So we are addressing what makes this election not credible? What makes this election not fair? What makes these corrupt tendencies come and spoil the election? What makes, is it, so these are the questions we're asking. Are these issues administrative? Are these issues political? Are these issues, but at the end of the day, what is right for the Kenyan? The Kenyan wants, if they actually put that vote, for that vote to count. If they're going to put that vote, but the systems have not been addressed. So we're looking at those systems and saying, unless those systems are addressed, and that's why we're saying no reforms, no election. Because it's as good as not having an election if you don't have those reforms. You're going to have a cosmetic dressing of an election, which of course our friends on the Jubilee side are very fast to want to do.
So they want
26. They want the 26 to come very quickly so that everybody can go and cast. And Fred, you must remember that we already almost did this on the 8th. We must remember and ask ourselves, supposing, for example, all these questions had not been raised, what would we have had? We'd have had an election, and you can see even from the observers now, they're coming back and saying, there were issues with that election. All these issues would not have come out clearly if somebody did not begin to bring them out.
Jubilee also insists they're doing the right thing. You say you're doing the right thing for Kenyans. Who do you think, for who is Jubilee doing the right thing?
When Jubilee saying they're doing the right thing, and then the right thing I think to them is about the law that they're putting into place, we need to get into the logistical issues that this law is going to be put into place 5 days before the election. They're doing the right thing from whom? For whom? Because IBC already is saying they might not be able to implement any of these new laws that are going to be put into place because each of them needs an administrative flow before the time. So for whom are they doing it? I have a feeling that we want to have a window dressing, and I think some of those changes that we're talking about are going to have very, very dire consequences for many people. For example, just going with the one to have to do with the quorum that you can have only 3 commissioners. And I keep giving this example that you might have 3 different groups sitting, 3 commissioners here, 3 commissioners here, each announcing a different leader. Will that have been something that Kenyans want to finally get to? So when we're talking about doing the right thing, we need to be able to look at the consequence of that right thing. Where are we going with this? Is it the right thing for Jubilee, but it's not the right thing for the people of Kenya? It has to be the right thing for the people of Kenya. And to answer that question means we go back to what have Kenyans asserted, and in the Constitution, what are they saying? In this regard, it's about the election and what is expected. A free, fair, credible is the bare minimum for that election.
Tia Galgalo, you insist you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
You're also insisting you're doing it right.
Yeah.
If you're doing the right thing, for who?
For Kenyans. For sure, the moment we do this election, because Supreme Court said you should do it. In the first place, election was bungled. I was announced. President Uhuru won, and we celebrated. Issues were raised. Now we are going to go back. We said, okay, we are going back. So for Kenyans, what we want to see is not demonstrations. We don't want to see people being killed. We don't want to see a leader who is selfish, who is not sensitive to Kenyans, a leader who doesn't care about the economy.
Are you saying that what NASA is doing is doing the right thing? Are you questioning for who they are doing it?
Yeah, for me, what we are doing is we are doing for Kenya, we are doing for future, we are doing for prosperity. So for me, what I think is that I think Jubilee is doing what it can, because I think we are ready for negotiation. We are ready to do, if there are any reforms that are supposed to be done, because I think Dr. Zani said, we need reforms. Reforms, I think this is one form of reforms. If, for example, we are saying, if transmission of resort had a problem, what can we do within 20 days? This is what we are able. We are providing leadership, we are providing goodwill, and we are saying, let's move. But instead of sitting and debating on the same, and saying, this is wrong, this should not happen from Parliament. They're just boycotting, sitting out there, they're out there, and for me that will not help Kenyans. But the moment they go in and also argue out, because sometimes what they are fearing is the majority, you know, the tyranny of numbers. And that was, we went out there and campaigned. Uhuru painted Kenya red and he won the election. He got majority members of parliament. Now, if for example it's them who had the majority, they would have done the same. But now we have the majority and we are not bragging about it, but we are trying to do what Kenyans will do. We want peace, we want peaceful election, we want the best for this country, and we want electoral commission to be given time to plan, sincerely. Because the moment we say Shelebas should go, this should happen, that should happen, I think even our panelists here, they are all my friends. They know in terms of procurement, you cannot just say, let's do away with this company, and you expect election to go on. It's already timeline given, which is critical.
Yes.
And I think,
I think both of you, both sides are not really keen on the timeline because you seem to be doing things that could affect the conduct of this election. But when you say we are doing the right thing, both sides insist they're doing the right thing for Kenyans. Professor, do you agree?
No, I don't. Because it is my humble submission that Jubilee is not doing the right thing. It's actually doing the wrong thing. And I say it humble submission because I know that when we look at why we are where we are, it is really because there were challenges that were seen to have affected the elections. And I think that the most critical first step would have been to see the way that we could come to some form of goodwill. The challenge, Fred, is that we in Kenya have had a perennial challenge with elections, and there is a way that the very people who cast vote have felt that sometimes their vote does not count. So my humble submission is that as we look at what is happening right now, you cannot on the one hand find that the only footprints that enabled us to begin to see that something was wrong, which was electronic transmission, is what you want to now change and make the primary mode be manual. You cannot, on the one hand, acknowledge that there were challenges with individuals who were given responsibility, whether they are presiding officers or returning officers, and then with another hand, you want to now put in law that the very individuals you are going to give free rein, not only because they are going to be texting, and there will be room for other changes, but then you are also going to be trying to vilify and punish someone who might be intimidated. You cannot at the same time talk about how it is that you are going to be representing Kenyans and you then start from a premise where you are going to be willing to spend billions of taxpayers' money, including rushing and using numbers in the legislature to just say we have formed a committee. But you are aware, because communication in itself is something that we should take into account, that there are representatives of the people who might be in the minority but who need their say, who are telling you, let's try and see how we can have a conversation. So I believe that if you are really asking, is we doing the right thing, I would humbly submit that I think that the greatest challenge is that we are really not taking into account the very people that we represent, the very voters that have a concern. And as I wrap up, I'm coming to NASA, because I think what you want to do is to say, I am nominated by NASA, the political party, and there are members who are elected, who are representing the people. What my duty is when I walk into the National Assembly is to recognize that it is an independent institution and that I have a responsibility to do whatever is within my power to ensure that the voice of those who are not being heard is felt. And if you look at the irreducible minimums, please note that they are pointing at ailments. But as you saw with the presidential candidate Raila Amolo Odinga being willing to go to IEBC, it is really normally what is done. I am concerned about the following, all right? And then you say, let us talk about it. If you are representing your people and you find that there is an imbalance of power or leaning, that IEBC seems in itself to be under threat, because part of the legislations would be saying that you don't know whether the chair might be there or not, things that are really intimidating even the very institution. I don't think it is wrong to go and pick it. I think what you do, Constitution in Article 37 indicates that when it is that power of the people which has been given to representatives does not seem in the capacity of the individuals to be something they can exercise, then they go back to the people. And so it is the right thing for NASA to go back to the people. And notice, as I just wind up, that if you listen to that clip, the reason why presidential candidate Raila Amolo Odinga said he has zero faith in the IEBC. You notice he went there, but he's saying what came out, and that is why he's saying we will continue. So the right thing is to push and to go back to the people and let the people's voice then speak, and hopefully we can then have a conversation, and I really believe that with goodwill we shall have our elections.
Senator Matangi, the EU observers have warned that the law change is risky. This is a headline on page 7 of the Standard. The European mission has warned any attempt to amend the law before the election is likely to fuel tension. This headline already insists you're not doing it right. Probably yes, doing it before the election is not doing it right, but you insist you're doing the right thing.
See, Fred, when I brought out that analogy between doing things right and doing the right thing as the differentiation between a manager and a leader, I want to first be very clear that there is a whole spectrum of space between that doing the right thing and doing it right, and that is where the qualities of a true leader kick in. That is where the qualities of selflessness, of honesty, of sacrifice, of being forward-looking, to be qualified as a leader, that's why they kick in. And that's why I want to say to you and say to Kenyans this morning that in Jubilee, that is why we believe that it is that right thing now, because we find ourselves in a situation whereby, as a demand of our Constitution and a decision rendered by our Supreme Court, that we have to make way forward for this country and be truthful to our Constitution. And so, to us, doing the right thing means that we pick it up from where it is, and doing it right means that then we offer leadership and start doing it now, irrespective of the fact that we have political detractors who may be saying different things, some of them which are even negative.
Are you assuming the EU, EU observers are political detractors?
I'm coming to that. Fred, also knowing that it is at the risk of being misunderstood, but 3, acknowledging that at this time, because we have been given that mandate, we have to offer leadership, and know that to comply with the requirement and the demand of the Constitution and the decision of the Supreme Court, that we have to have an election that will be credible, free and fair, then we have to correct certain things which were demanded of by the Supreme Court to be rectified. And let me say this. You see, when the Supreme Court rendered its decision and told IEBC that there have been illegalities and irregularities in that process, what the Supreme Court was also acknowledging, being one part of government, and remember, this fact is simple, but it's always lost on people's mind when they make the argument that really everybody who is in this argument is part of that government, including the judiciary, including the contestants, one of them who is in the executive, and now as legislators. And what then that decision was saying is this, that in the way forward for government to ensure that things happen right for citizens of this country, all arms must act. And that is what we are doing. As legislators, we are kicking in to ensure that the right thing is done in a right way.
Okay. Senator,
by offering leadership.
I can look at the clock and see clearly our time is up. but I'll give you each about 30 seconds to comment, and I want you to comment on this issue as well as you give your final submissions. The issue or the proposal by the church to change the law to create inclusive government, and that is the NCCK, who was speaking yesterday in Limuru. They want more cabinet positions to include more people from across the country, as well as funding for the opposition as well, to actually give them a better platform to agitate for Kenyans. Let's start with you, Senator Zani, about 45 seconds.
Thank you very much, Fred. Let me start with a process that was very, very important, and that is the IPPG process. When we had the same sort of quagmire, it was possible to bring all the political parties and have a discussion. By the time you're thinking about a legislative action, you need a level of consultation. This is how we went through even the Constitution. You gain consensus. People agree. You know, it's not a question of feeling you have the numbers and you can push an agenda. That is where the problem begins. Because for the people who feel that that agenda is not their agenda, it creates a problem. So always, every time, it's really because lawmaking is about consensus. It's about what people feel, and it's about addressing specific problems. And then to the last one that you're talking about, and that is the church. I think the church maybe needs to play a more proactive role in the present situation, in really addressing this quagmire we're in terms of addressing which way the direction we're taking. Right now, many Kenyans are saying the church is silent. We need to hear their voice specifically on the current issues.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Tia Delgado.
For me, I think I like the way the church is getting in. The issue of the legislation, from where the envoys are saying that this is very dangerous. I think everyone is doing things that they think that is good for this country. Going to the street, disrupting business, you know, people being killed out there, you know, talking of, you know, doing political rallies that is not really, that call people names and all that kind of stuff. I think we need to stop all this. Date is already set. We are ready for election, and I believe that Kenyans are ready for election. For Jubilee, we are more than ready. And I think we are out there going to campaign. I think from tomorrow everybody will be out there asking for votes. Let's give Electoral Commission a chance. I know we don't have most of the system are not 100% whatever. Maybe mistake has been done. The Supreme Court has given its judgment, and we need to go back. And let's believe in our institution. I believe when Isaac Hassan was told to go home without even making any mistake, there was dialogue. And I believe that was done before election. And for me, I thought we had cured most of the things. But again, after election, we are now going back again. They are saying Electoral Commission is not good. We are poking holes on Independent Electoral Commission. We are now saying that the Supreme Court is doing the 1, 2, 3, and we are all saying again we can't do this. I think NASA do not have goodwill for this country. They want to put this country into chaos. They are asking people to go out there and demonstrate. We've seen people dying. We've seen business disrupted. Would Kenyans would want to see their business prosper. We want to see everything goes on very well in this country. I think we need to tolerate each other. We need to be patient. Of course, not everybody who will win. Of course, when the Supreme Court said that election should be repeated, they celebrated. When we won, we celebrated. We just want to go back again and do this again. And in a better way, and I believe Electoral Commission is set. We give them time to plan and ensure that at least this time, if there are issues, of course, it will come out. But let's go ahead and do this election and come out, because every time when we don't win, I think we don't have to really complain. And then we've seen that Raila do not accept at any one time. He's been losing to 13, every time he loses, he brings in, and I don't think he has a chance again to win.
Because of time, Professor Jacqueline Rodwell, final submissions.
Just to remind all my distinguished colleagues and all Kenyans that justice does not occur in a vacuum. It is dependent on perspective. It is also dependent on context. And I would like to agree with the church that in Kenya there is inequalities, and that a lot of that inequality is really, to a large extent, sometimes justified, including even being codified sometimes into laws that would be seen to be excluding some groups from others, and therefore keeping. As I speak right now, I do know that the 2/3 gender rule, which in itself is in our constitution, has not really been observed, and it looks like that law is being disobeyed, and yet life is going on. So my parting shot, really, I take great encouragement from a quotation that I got when I was being inducted into the very challenging role of being a National Assembly. And I remember the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justice Muturi, told us that when we seek to legislate, we want to translate aspirations of the people into tangible realities, and that we would need to think, reflect, and ensure that we are courageous, skilled leaders that seize the opportunity to do things better. I think in this country, at this time, we have a chance to do things better, and I think the way to do it is to look at the issues that did not go well specifically, and we need to get together and work as leaders, political parties, legislation, IEBC. We need to face what it is that is wrong on behalf of Kenyans, and not for our good.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi.
Thank you. I want to say to what the church has spoken to this morning, that indeed they're talking about us as a country. They have spoken to one of the key issues that this country must acknowledge. They're speaking about the journey that this country embarked on with our history, coming from colonialism, and we need to remember very well that the interest to divide this country was, and the seed was planted by colonialists, and it is since our founding fathers decided to break it, and it has been an ongoing journey. We must acknowledge as a country that yes, we have made steps, fundamental ones, but it's a journey that we have not yet completed. We have to work very hard towards it. There have to be things that we have to do. And Fred, I'm reminded most of the time when I look at our history, I read some of our history books and watch some clips that played out when we just got independent, and you cannot believe the spirit that engulfed all our national leaders at that time, that one of ensuring that we reclaim our country as one nation. Now, eventually and gradually, we have managed to break this down, and especially led by greed, selfishness, and I want to face the camera and say, most unfortunately, led by politicians. And this is one thing that we have to say to this country, that it is a nail we must overcome. We have to find ourselves where we are supposed to be as one nation. We can't afford to lag behind. And that's why I want to say in my parting shot that in this current scenario, when we have largely spoken this morning about doing the right thing and doing that thing right, or that right thing doing it right, then we have to say to our leaders, and especially from my colleagues on the other end in NASAM, that it is especially important that this time we unify the country by ensuring that we strictly adhere to what the constitutional demands are right now and what Kenyans want. They want an election. They want us to move forward. Kenyans want to go on with their lives. They don't want to be held captive anymore by politicians.
Thank you so much, Senator Kimani Wamatangi from Kiambu County, Dr. Agnes Zani, nominated Senator and also Secretary General ODM, Tia Galgalo, former woman representative Isiolo County, and Professor Jacqueline Odwol, nominated MP. Those have been my panelists this morning. Of course, change law to create inclusive government, that's what the church is saying. Widen the cabinet, probably expanded beyond the 22 members currently, and include everyone else. Remember, there's also a big headline. This is a very unfortunate headline. Malaria deaths rise to 30 as outbreak spreads. Unfortunately, Kenyans are still dying from malaria, even as we speak about politics in this day and age. Well, Power Breakfast still continues up until 9. Remember, Chef Ali is in the house. Just after the next break, he'll continue cooking breakfast. Plus, there's that Public Service Week interview. Joey _Mudengi will be conducting that as well.